Hey guys, I just want to let you know that I'm now a certified spiritual life coach. If you resonate with the topics and lessons that my guests and I discuss on my podcast, and you feel that you could use some empowerment and direction in your journey of becoming who you truly are, consider booking a free discovery call with me on my website at kindlemccullough.com. And now on to the episode. Hi guys, I'm excited today. I have my new acquaintance and friend, Diana Gallego. I found her on the HeartMath Institute website. I contacted HeartMath a while back to see if I could talk with one of them to talk about the science and the instruments they use, and because I was introduced to them, and I was really excited to see the connections between science and spirituality and health and all those things. But they don't really have many speakers, but they have many practitioners, many people that they've trained all throughout the world. They have like a big old map on the website you can find of practitioners, so it's pretty cool. So I looked on that, and I just found the closest person to me about a couple hours away. So it was really cool to see someone that close, and emailed her, and she was excited and game to do the podcast. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Diana.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So do you want to give a little bit of background about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Okay. Um, I am Diana Elizabeth Gallego, and I work at the Abilene Brain Center right now, and I do QEEGs on people who are trying to understand themselves and their brain, and are also looking for non-pharmacological approaches to the care of the brain. And I've been working there for 5 years. And I came to Abilene to be closer to my daughter. And when I retired in 2016, I was sure I had Alzheimer's. My mother had passed away from Alzheimer's. My grandmother had passed away from Alzheimer's. I had two uncles who passed away from Alzheimer's, and one who passed away with Lewy bodies, and another one who passed away from Parkinson's. And so I was sure that the problems that I was having at the time were Alzheimer's. I went to see my primary care physician, who was transitioning into the Institute of Functional Medicine. She was in their 3-year program to receive certification, and it's been described as drinking water from a fire hydrant. So, and she gave me her password to attend an all-day training with Dale Bredesen, who is the leading researcher in the world on the prevention of Alzheimer's and the reversal of cognitive decline. He's at the University of California, Berkeley. And during that time, I learned that they had a functional medicine coaching program, because doctors, functional medicine requires lifestyle interventions. And the best way to get that done is with a coach. And so I signed up. And when I moved to Abilene, I knew I needed to do a QEEG and get a baseline on my brain. So I moved here because they had a functional medicine clinic. They had Dr. Patterson and his wife, Sheila, and we had a church. And so I said, okay, I'm moving. And so I moved from Dallas here, and I went to the clinic, and they were having a special. Dr. Patterson was talking the very next night on QEEG. So I went to the dinner and signed up. It was a great, incredible price, and we still offer it here in Abilene. And when I found out that I might have Alzheimer's later, but right now I have unmanaged ADHD. And I've been doing the work of 4 people for 8 years, and I was fried to a crisp. And
Wow.
I was actually in a state of chronic fatigue. And so I just kept living the lifestyle. I was introduced into HeartMath in around the early 1990s. And this is just when it was barely off the ground. And I had an M-Wave, and it was about the size of a pack of cigarettes. And you would plug it on your ear. And uh, I practiced it. I did a couple of staff development for teachers because teachers need to learn to reduce stress. And so as I picked up again the skills that that I knew about and started to really practice it on an all new level. And recently, I have, depending on which doctor you talk to, I have somewhere between 6 and 8 strikes against my brain. And muscles are very, very, very important. What we've learned about them is that they're an endocrine system. And you can eat right, you can try and sleep right, but unless you reduce stress, you cannot gain muscles. And if you can't gain muscles, you can't regulate your glucose. If you can't regulate your glucose, you can't be healthy. So I've gone really back to understanding that stress management is critical, especially today, because in old days, we work hard physically, and that helps to reduce stress. We had our hands in the ground. We had our hands on animals. And it was a lifestyle that had moved from our ancient roots, but still had enough to promote health. Today, we're so far removed that unless we do something, we can't be healthy. And so I've gone back to really, really practicing the HeartMath. The effects also of not managing stress are really bad for the brain, and that's one of the reasons why it's believed. And I just read. I haven't read the article yet, but I downloaded it, and it was on chronic stress and women, because women tend to experience stress differently than men, and that's one of the reasons they believe that 2/3 of us of Alzheimer's people are women
Wow.
because of stress management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a journey. Been through a lot and researched a lot, and yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize hard math has been around that long. That's pretty cool. So what were you doing? What was your job that you were doing? You said you were doing like the work of 4 people.
Okay. Um, well, um, I'm a dancer, and I started dance education when I was 4 years old. My grandfather said, she should have dance lessons. And so, even though we were very, very poor, we lived in the poorest city in the United States at the time, Laredo, Texas. We had an incredible flamenco dance teacher there. And I studied ballet and flamenco. And when I got to junior high, I had a talent for teaching. Our drill team director passed away from an aneurysm during the Christmas holidays. So I taught the class for a whole semester. And the next year, they hired a modern dance, contemporary modern dance teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And she let me teach for another year. And so I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in dance. And I had planned to get my doctorate in dance and do research in dance, but life happened. And I ended up with a dance studio with 350 students. And then I went through burnout for the first time when my students decided they want to do national competitions. And after 13 consecutive national championships, I just couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
That's not what I put into.
Mm.
Uh, anyway, I followed my mentors to Texas Women's University. They both had PhDs in dance. And taught an cultural dance at a middle school. I was the first middle school teacher out and to teach folklorico at the school, and which was not my area of expertise at all. Is ballet and contemporary modern and drill team, of course. But I retired and actually I just stopped my job. I just couldn't do it anymore. Mm. And was a Disney teacher, and I was a runner-up for Dance Teacher of the U.S., and I had a folklorico dance company, salsa championship. We hosted a competition in salsa, and the students did mainly all different types of ballroom dancing, with salsa being the main point of competition and performance. And we had a hip hop team, and my program was destroyed, and I rebuilt it. And then I just couldn't go anymore. And a year later, the district saw that they needed a director, because we now had 113 theater and dance teachers, and there was about 27 dance, and the rest were theater. And they needed a coordinator for their programs, their equipment. And so I was hired. I didn't apply. They invited me to interview. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll come interview. And after the interviews had finished and we were having a discussion, they said, well, the right person hasn't applied for the job. And they started saying everything that they wanted. I said, who would that be? And so they opened the position again. And that time I applied and got the position. And, being the director for dance and being the director for theater, that's each one is a full-time job. But being in charge of a $5 million budget to install equipment in existing schools is another job. And working with the maintenance department, I got in trouble for putting equipment in the same schools. Well, you can't put theater equipment in a school that has no electricity. And I literally went, several of my schools didn't have electricity. The auditorium was dark. It was like they couldn't host anything or do anything in there. And, how could I, the maintenance department didn't want that job. And so I was the last person that they helped at the end of the year when everyone is on vacation. Wow. So it was that was impossible too. And then I had events, UIL and dance evaluations and conferences, and taking groups of teachers to the conferences. And that's another full-time job. So yeah, it was at least 4.
Wow. It's just amazing. I'm amazed at how much you've done, how much study you've done, how much work you've done. And I love the, combination of like dance, and that's very action and body oriented, but also like studying and getting masters and so the brain and heart connection and body, which is part of the HeartMath. I know that, it took a long time before we understood about ADHD and kind of the old school mentality. I mean, it's still very prevalent today of work, and, maybe overloading people, and just like how much was put on your shoulders. That's wild. And I can see how it's led you on your journey to, of course, getting burned out and hurting your health, but then finding solutions and finding these avenues.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you that most things are double-edged.
Right.
Yeah. And my success comes from my trauma. And when I'm a noticer, I notice things about people and about conversations. And when I was about 4 or 5, I told my mother, Grandma is not a nice person. And she started to tell me how nice Grandma was. And at that time, I knew that if I wanted to know the truth, if I wanted to know what's really going on, I had to figure it out myself. And that has led to a great deal of anxiety. It's also led to a great deal of success. And so I try and manage the anxiety the best way that I can. I can manage it fairly well when I'm awake. Not always. Sometimes it still gets to me, like this morning. But the trauma's still there. And my next challenge is I want to combine HeartMath with self-hypnosis so that I can sleep better more consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's the trauma still shows up in the night. And and when I don't know, I can't rest. So that drives me. All these books, these are my favorite doctors.
Yeah,
And they're
for those just listening, she's got a whole bookshelf and
yeah,
tons of
and they're
books behind her.
right below. Yeah, so I know a great deal about nutrition now, and I learn something new every single day. And my love of learning is my number one character strength on the character strength survey. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that as well. Obviously, that's a big part of my journey and, part of why I started this podcast. And I love talking to lots of different kind of people, learning about their journeys, learning about what they've learned. It's amazing, but also along the journey too, learning about slowing down and meditation and these things to really work with our nervous system. And also, we're never going to figure everything out. And there's a the transrational, the beyond the logical mind, and the wisdom in that, and there's so much more. So it's just about balancing. So yeah, do you want to kind of get into HeartMath and what it is and what it does?
All right. Heart rate variability training is about learning to purposely increase the space between the thump, because every heartbeat is, even though you have an average of 70 or an average of 80 heartbeats per minute, each heartbeat is individual and unique. And so you learn to relax the heart and the thump, the space in between each heartbeat, not in between the heartbeats, but of the heartbeat, increases. And as it gets larger, you become more relaxed. And we can influence that with our thoughts, and with especially of a thought that you can create a feeling. And if you can think of a situation when you didn't feel like that, how did you feel? And you try and capture that essence, and it relaxes. We can influence our heart by relaxing the back of our eyes when your eyes are closed. For me, that's very easy to do. We can exhale and swallow, and it resets our polyvagal nerve. So there are a lot of little things that you can do. You can smile and lift the cheekbones right here, and that influences the heart. Well, the more things that we can do to influence the heart. Now, the beauty of HeartMath is that it measures it. And as a coach, you want to be able to measure what's working, and so that you can tune into that and really harness it. And once you begin to measure it and see what that feels like and what it looks like, you don't have to wear the equipment on you. You can do HeartMath anywhere, anytime, and no one has to know. Slowing the breath rate. You can't, if you start to force the change of the breath rate and manipulate your breath too hard, that backfires and creates anxiety. But if you can learn to just slowly ease into a slower breath rate, the breath and the heart are connected, and you can impact your heart.
Yeah.
You can relax your heart and impact your breath rate.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure that affects so many things, and it's supposed to be a hard question, but what what is doing that? How does that affect your body, and how does that prevent certain things? And yeah.
Well, the body can only rest, digest, and restore when it's in a parasympathetic state. And in the parasympathetic state, we are relaxed. And so, learning how to relax, and if you can measure it, then that gives you more control over. Because Stephen Porges published a book in 1990, The Polyvagal Theory, and it was the most controversial book. I mean, especially the second part of the book. Anyway, the communication from the body to the brain is like 80 to 90% body to brain and 10 to 20% brain to body. And so there's constant communication. And we're learning today that there's communication with our body is the most amazing thing. I learned this past week that your bones communicate to your brain. And when your brain needs more calcium, they just send a little piece of it up to the brain. And who would have ever thought that? You know, it's just like the bones are just like little pieces of wood, and they're there, and they carry the muscles. So yeah, it's so learning purposely to relax, and if you need help, measuring it, and measuring it lets you know if you're doing it or not doing it. And so my clients, when they come in for a QEEG, first thing I do, well, we put on the cap. And we have to wait for the gel to set in the neurocap before we do the QEEG. And I set them up with a clip on there. And I say, okay, let's see how well you can relax. And so I get an idea of their ability to impact their nervous system and to bring themselves into a calm state.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe a little bit about QEEG, what that is and what that does?
Okay, well, the QEEG, our brain waves emanate above the skull for about an inch. So we put a cap on the head and we put neurogel, which is very similar to what they use for sonograms to make a really good connection. We put it in all the little holes in the cap, and then we measure the brain waves that emanate. And I have a discovery in the clinic, and it magnifies the brain waves 10,000 times so that we're able to actually measure, and we get a picture of what parts of the brain are over functioning and under functioning, and to what degree they are over functioning and under functioning. So we know where the most critical areas are in the brain to begin interventions.
Right, because we've now mapped the brain and the different parts and what they do to different parts of the body and how they work. Yeah.
Right. And like, I recently did one on a woman who was having trouble with memory, but it's not in one place in her brain. She has a number of different places, and when you have a very dysregulated cingulate gyrus, which she did, and you have dysregulated basal ganglia, which we couldn't measure because this is cortical, and so we can only measure the cortical, but we can also tell by behaviors, and it's a 189 questionnaire that allows us to look at behaviors and brain together. And if you have PTSD, it affects everything, or a head injury. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I want to go back to one thing you said about how the body and the heart communicate to the brain way more even than the brain communicates to the body. And I think that's a paradigm shift, really, because in the past we've been taught so much about the intelligence of the brain, its thinking and all that stuff. And Western culture is very focused on thinking, but we're learning how much that maybe our body is even more intelligent, and like our heart and our gut,
Yeah.
their brains of their own, and they might even be smarter than the brain because they're seeing or understanding things first, what's going on in the world, and then they're telling
Yeah.
the brain. The brain is transmitting that into thoughts, and we're like, oh, that's the brain, but it's actually the brain
Yeah.
receiving the communication from the heart or the gut.
Yeah. All right. I'll come back to that. There
Sure.
was something that I wanted to say that when we're measuring that, we're measuring the neurons.
Mm.
You have to remember that the heart is something like the electromagnetic field of the heart is like 5,000 times the electromagnetic field of the brain. I'm not sure if it's 1,000 or 5,000, but regardless, it's the electromagnetic field. And my personal belief is that the electromagnetic field is not empty. It's not just energy. There's actually information there.
Mm.
So, yeah. So getting back to relaxing the heart and opening the heart and nurturing and living from the heart is it's great.
Yeah. So of course I'm really interested in the connection between science and spirituality. Um, so would you say that like the body has like an electromagnetic field, and so the heart is part of um, kind of it's listening, and it's sensitive to that electromagnetic field of everything around it, and receiving that information and transmitting that to the brain. Is that accurate?
Yes. I try and make it very clear to clients that if we do neurofeedback, I can't put two electrodes on their brain and expect for their life to change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to realize that health and happiness go together, and that you have to have sunshine,
Right.
water, just like a plant. You have to move, you have to sweat, you have to eat. And uh, and we were talking about the intelligence that's in the body. Uh, the serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, glutamate, they're all made in the gut, in
Mm.
your colon. So I can't put electrodes here unless they're willing to eat resistant starch. And what's the first thing they take you off of when you're overweight? Or if you want, or they take you off starches. Well, you have to learn how to cook the starches. And if you take them out, your all of the microbes in your colon that create the neurotransmitters don't get fed, and they can't work for you. They can't give you the serotonin that you need to feel happy.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love the holistic approach of the thoughts and emotions, and um, with things we think of like psychology or spirituality, religion. It's connected to the physical health, but the physical
yeah,
health also is connected. So it's not about either just focusing on our thoughts and emotions or just focusing on physical health. They're all connected. So you have to do all of it. And then, like you're saying, with Western science, is very specialized, and a lot of times they're looking at one part of the body, or one problem, and then trying to fix that. Then they're missing the holistic connection to all things, and so they might actually make the problem worse. Or you have to look at the body holistically.
yeah. You have to do all of it. Yes, and when it comes down to it, learning to relax to me is the most important, because you can get the sunlight, you can eat the food, but if you don't put your body in a parasympathetic system, you can't heal. It's impossible. So we come back to the importance of HeartMath.
Yeah, yeah. So HeartMath, you said there's instruments can measure things, but also then there's a lot of techniques to
Yes.
help your heart relax and nervous system.
Yeah, and there's simple techniques like you can feeling stress, and you can just say stop. And you can just breathe for a bit, or you can think about something else and calm yourself down. Or you can think about when was the time when I didn't feel like that, and just stay there for a little bit, and then come back, and then now look at the problem again.
Mm.
And just that moment to shift can help give you, because when we're in a state of anxiety, we see one tree, we don't see
Mm-hmm.
a forest, and the forest is the possibilities. So
Mm.
no matter if your problems are physical.
Hey guys, unfortunately we had some technical difficulties, so we had to stop and come back later. It's the first time ever Riverside's failed on me, but in general, great company. But technology always has some issues every once in a while. So we're coming back at it, and at the time we were talking about heart math and some techniques, and Diana, you were talking about anxiety and how that makes us kind of our vision gets narrow. We get focused on one thing, and you're talking about if it doesn't matter if the problems are physical or mental or emotional. Um, so I was going to let you give it back to you
Okay.
and let you kind of go along with your thought process
Yeah.
there, if you can remember.
Our pupils react to all of our emotions, and that's one of the reasons why poker players like to wear dark glasses, so you can't see how they're reacting to what's happening. And so when our pupils narrow, I believe they dilate, our we're just in a different psychological, physiological state, and our world, we have infinite possibilities that are available to us. There are infinite shades of color. There's infinite, and we narrow it down, and we only see that problem, and maybe one solution that's not available to us, and that just puts us in great anxiety. And so we have to relax and allow our pupils to go back, and our heart to rest, and then to engage in the world in a more relaxed way, and begin to listen for signs of all the possibilities that are there. And once we relax, and miracles can happen. Miracles don't happen when we're in a state of anxiety. They happen when we're relaxed and we can see the possibilities that are available to us. And that's really, when you are depressed or when you're in a state of anxiety, it's learning to relax is critical. And I told you about the journal. This is the Journal of Applied Psychophysiological and Biofeedback. And 9 of the 12 studies are on heart rate variability training, because you can't really do psychotherapy with clients. You can't really do physical healing, because when our body is in a state of fear or stress, the possibilities for a change in behavior, a different way of looking at the problem, looking at possible small steps that we can take, all of those are not available to us. So this is
Right.
why this is one of the most important skills of our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think psychology is starting to realize the importance of the somatic element, and
Yes, somatic.
how the nervous system and calming that is gonna change things so much. It's gonna get people a
Yes.
lot more clear thinking, and like you said, when we feel in danger, our vision narrows, and that's not just like physically externally, but also in our minds and our options and so I always love the idea of the third way. So a lot of times we think we have like, oh, this choice or this choice, but a lot of times if we really dig deep, and that comes with being relaxed and
Yes, and
feeling
open.
safe, then we can find a third way, the best way. And there's always more possibilities out there, and so it takes curiosity, imagination, and feeling of safety. So
Yes.
Yeah, you were also talking about the electromagnetic field of the heart.
Yes, I have trouble remembering numbers, so I looked it
Yeah,
up.
you said
Yes,
it
and
was
I
5,000.
was correct. The electromagnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than the electromagnetic field of the brain. So when we're able to um, increase the space between our thumb and we're in a relaxed state, everything works better in our body. Yes,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
um, my belief. This is my personal belief, and I haven't looked to see what science says today, but it's my personal belief that the electromagnetic field is not empty, and we all know that when um, you walk in a room and something terrible has happened, you can feel it without
Hmm.
anyone saying anything.
Hmm.
You know something is wrong, and we know that we impact each other. I had I've had several times had the opportunity to meditate with Buddhist monks that the Crow Museum
Wow.
brings into Dallas, and um, when you meditate with a group of Buddhist monks, it is a different experience. And what's different? Well, it's their magnetic field.
Mm.
And we know that that when a person is really grounded and you come to them with a problem and you just sit for a moment together, it can impact because our electromagnetic field, if we're emanating peace, love, acceptance, is totally different than if we're in a state of fear. And people who are practiced, um, they they can help us calm down. So if you have a trusted friend who is grounded, if you have a minister who is grounded, if you have a psychologist who's grounded, and you come and just being in the presence of someone. And then the opposite can happen. I had a bad day on Monday, and it started when a friend shared what was going on in her life, and it just touched me. And I didn't have a protective bubble around me.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
wasn't, and so I took that all in. And I do tend to really feel the presence of people, and I'm very intuitive, and so it
Hmm.
has its positive. But we can be overtaken by negative emotions, and so practicing these skills to reground ourselves. It's a practice. It's not we don't get the skill and now we have it forever.
Right.
It's a daily practice,
Hmm.
and some days we were reminded that it's a practice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of I forgot who was talking about like to experience more bliss and happiness, you also have to open yourself up to more pain and sadness and all those things. And so, I think there's a lot of people who have had trauma or different things, and they're very closed, and so they're not very sensitive or empathetic. But that's just because they're not ready to handle those things, or they don't know how.
Yeah.
And so things like heart math and can give us practices and ways to heal and ground and feel safe to then open up
Yes.
more, to be more sensitive, to be able to handle the pain or negative things, but then to experience more happiness and bliss and more empathy, which obviously helps us be there for others and help them
Uh-huh.
more.
And helps us expand
Hmm.
our magnetic field. And as performers, which that was my area
Hmm.
of dance, we learn to expand our electromagnetic field all the way to the balcony. Now we can't stay in that state,
Mm.
but and so we can expand and then bring it back down into a small bubble.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, like
I lost
charisma
my
and
train of thought
magnetism.
on what you were saying that I was going to reply to. Say, what was the last thing you said?
I was just saying, how we can ground and feel safe and do these practices to
Yeah.
have more empathy for others and
Oh,
to heal and
empathy.
grow.
That was what is.
Yeah.
Empathy is for those of us who did not have a childhood where there was empathy and where we felt, safe. It can be learned. And I know that because I learned empathy in 2009. And it totally changed my life. I went through a program called Pathways. It's createagreatlife.org. It's in Dallas. And it was started by Dr. Phil before he was Dr. Phil. And this nonprofit bought the program from him, and they still run it. And you learn to get into your heart, and it's a process that I went through, and it totally changed my life and all my relationships with everyone. So if anyone out there is struggling because relationships break down when you can't read facial expressions, and you can't read facial expressions until you will feel safe, because that's one of the possibilities, that nuances that we have to learn. And so, so when you learn to relax, you're able to look at the faces more clearly, and you're able to intuit the emotions that the person is feeling, because we give those signals. Different cultures do it a little bit differently. Oriental cultures tend to use the eyes, and Western cultures tend to use the eyebrows and forehead a lot. So you have to learn to read the eyes. And when you do, relationships change. And just life is just so different. And so, oh God, it's worth every penny that I pay for to go through the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, what you can discover as you grow and heal, and
Yeah.
the possibilities that open up, and just how life transforms from the inside
Mm-hmm.
out. And yeah, just the power of our perception and inner state, how that can make a difference. One thing that really excites me about HeartMath is it seems like it's connecting the science to spirituality. And, I've wondered, is this kind of pointing to like the electromagnetic field of the heart and different organs and in the body? Is that, would that like maybe be what they used to call chakras? And maybe that's what
Well,
it's kind of pointing to.
the chakras are all energy centers. Um, our organs emanate different
Hmm.
frequencies, just like every emotion generates a different frequency. And so we think of ourselves as solid. We're not
Mm.
solid. We're just a bunch of dancing electrons
Hmm.
and protons. Yes, it's the just like the brain emanates
Hmm.
energy that I measure at the clinic that emanates 1 inch. So do each of these glands that are associated with it. And so yes, the chakras and science, we're coming closer together, I
Yeah,
think.
that's exciting. Have you heard of the podcast, The Telepathy Tapes?
Have I ever what?
I heard the podcast called The Telepathy Tapes.
No, but I do believe that ideas are emanated, and yes, and and a lot of what we have thought is as voodoo, or ideas that were negative ideas. I'm sure that voodoo has a positive side as well,
Hmm.
but
Right.
yes, that yeah. And
Yeah.
great when there several large and important inventions happened, and people on different sides of the world came up with the same idea at the same time.
Hmm.
So
Right.
it's kind of what you're able to pick up. Um,
Right. Like we're like radio like signals, and there's always energy flowing in the field, and it's like are we attuned to the right station? Or I guess depending on which station we're
yeah,
gonna pick up different energetic signals.
Yes, I believe that. And we see that in fashion. All of a sudden, a certain thing is in style, and everybody knows it. So we all do it to a certain extent. Pick up the waves.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, really interesting, really fascinating, and it's cool. I think that science is starting to catch up and figure these things out, and I can't wait to see the future and what happens with all that. And you said that HeartMath also has like wearable technology
It
that
does,
helps.
and this is the latest one, and this little thing hooks on. So you just hook it on, and then you put this on your earlobe,
Hmm.
and it
So
lifts.
the first one hooks onto the top of your shirt, like
Well,
right
it
where
just
your neck
anywhere
is.
that it
Okay.
reaches, because
Hmm.
it's a short cord right
Hmm.
here, and it communicates with your phone. And so you don't have to have a special device, and you don't, you can be, if you have, a few minutes in the airport, you can hook it up. And this is ideal for the person who is starting out. We need to know, it gives you an audible sound when you are, and you can turn it on or off. It has a lot of different options on how you can use it. But if you want to know, am I neutral? It'll give you a tone, and if you're in the zone, it'll give you another tone. And so you can.
And
Um,
what is the zone?
Pardon?
What is the zone?
But there's three zones. It's in HeartMath. It's the stress, a
Hmm.
neutral zone, and in the zone where you're definitely in the
Like flow.
parasympathetic state.
Hmm.
So if you're wanting to coach yourself, uh, a coach tells you, a little bit, do this, do that, a little
Hmm.
more.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
enough.
Hmm.
So if you're wanting some coaching as to learn to get your feet solid on the ground regarding heart rate variability, this is an excellent tool. And it comes with an option for guided steps for a lot of the beginner skills. So you're paying not only for this, you're also paying for instruction.
Hmm. Yeah. And I can see how something like that can train you to become more sensitive to your body. So you're like, oh, I see what the instrument's telling me I'm in this zone or
Uh-huh.
I'm here. And then you're like, oh, that's what this zone feels like in my body. And
Yes.
so I can see over time how you would need the instrument less. That you could just be like, oh, my body feels this way. So I know based on how much I practice that I'm in this zone. And then as you practice the skills to get in to
Right.
better zones, then you can do that. And so I can see just how valuable that would be.
Yes. Very valuable. It's Yeah, and even if you had a mentor or coach, it's still really helpful to get feedback,
Hmm.
biofeedback right in the moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. It's awesome. Well, is there anything else that we haven't covered?
Yes, wearable technology, and it if you I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people are using wearable technology today. Um, at the clinic, one of the first things that we talk about is sleep, because if you don't sleep well, the brain you get too many delta waves, and it's just totally dysregulated, and you can't get your feet really squarely on the ground. Um, and they say, well, I have a smartwatch, or I have a Garmin. I says, but I don't sleep with it.
Hmm.
No, you have to sleep with it
Hmm. Hmm.
to get your to see how rested you are when you're sleeping. Because if you're not in a parasympathetic state when you're sleeping, you can't build muscles, you can't heal cancer, you can't heal depression, you can't heal anxiety. You have to learn to get into a relaxed state, and if you don't do that in your sleep, and if you have high cortisol when you're sleeping, cortisol and adrenaline they're like this. They don't separate from each other.
Hmm.
Well, the growth factor, um, if the cortisol is high, the growth factor is low. If the growth factor is high, the cortisol is low. So we have to lower it and to build our muscles and to heal our brain and to have our body operating at optimum. And so if you don't know what your heart rate variability is while you're sleeping, then you don't know if you're relaxed enough or if you need to start doing some interventions regarding your sleep cycle or doing some kind of meditation, doing a supplement or drinking tea or eating kiwi. So I'm working on a handout. Have been working on it since 2018, and I've found some recent stuff to add to it, and that I'll be offering to my followers on YouTube and TikTok.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure that'll be really helpful. So
Yeah.
good luck with your studies there. And yeah, I can put your information in the show notes for people to find you.
I haven't launched it yet, but I will be.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It is a necessary skill for today. Our ancestors didn't have to when they came home, from working in the field and or working with herding the animals. They were relaxed. They were grounded in the earth. They were connected to the earth. And today we live in an abnormal environment. And so if we don't do something actively, every single one of us, if we don't, then we cannot be healthy or happy.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to escape the hustle culture, and then with technology and everyone packed together in cities and noise and all these things. There's so much to keep us from being at peace and grounded. And so yeah, like you said, there's many things, and the HeartMath is a great resource to help us do something every day to help us
Yes.
get grounded and at peace.
And we all have difficult moments, difficult conversations that we have to have.
Right.
We can't just run away from difficult conversations. We have to hit them head on in a very gentle and centered way. And once you learn HeartMath, you can be having a conversation and be practicing at the same time.
Yeah. I've noticed too, as I've gotten older and become more familiar with these things and more familiar with my body, and just noticing in heart conversations, elevated heart rate and or where it feels tension in which part of my body, and then just working on deep breathing and feeling through things and not reacting right away. But it's so powerful. It's so big. And then doing things like meditation helps me to not react in the moment, and to think a little bit, a little more space between the stimulus and the response. So these things can be so powerful.
I used my HeartMath because I wanted to see what meditations were most helpful for me. So I looked myself up, and I did 109 meditations. And I learned at the clinic that the meditations that work for me don't work for someone else. It's very, very personal and individual. And so my clients at the clinic, I recommend that they get a HeartMath device and actually measure, because just because you're sitting in a lotus position doesn't mean that you're going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. There's so many different types of meditation, and they are hitting different needs and different things specifically. So yeah, that's huge. That's really helpful. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. I think we covered a lot, and it was really interesting, really helpful. It was really great to hear your story and see your journey through health and growth, and also learn about HeartMath and what it does, and the continuing connection between science and spirituality, and So all the things. So I really enjoyed it, and I love your energy and enthusiasm and joy. I really
Well,
appreciate all
thank
that.
you so much. And I'm so glad to see that you're doing what you're doing. I think it's so important. And I wish you all the success in the world.
Yeah, thanks.